We cannot hear you.
Yeah, I don't know why it muted me again. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to, I believe, episode 7 of Awareness is Key. I am your host, Valerie, and joining me today is Daniel and Lily. After a little break last week, Heather won't be joining us tonight, but we'll hopefully be back next week. We actually ended up deciding to change the topic up a little bit tonight and do emotional and mental abuse tonight. Um, so there's a lot of information that we're going to cover with that. Really, before we get started, I want to say that, the reason that we do these lives is that we do believe through education and awareness will come prevention. And that is our goal, is to try to prevent people from becoming victims um, of domestic violence. And I think this is a topic that's really near and dear to both Lily and Daniel's heart, as well as my own and Heather's. So we just want to take a minute to welcome everyone to the table tonight. And I think we're just going to go ahead and jump in and get started because we have a lot of information. So let me go ahead and give you all a brief definition of what emotional abuse is. Emotional abuse is a pattern of behaviors in which the perpetrator insults, humiliates, and generally instills fear in an individual in order to control them. The individual's reality may become distorted as they internalize the abuse as their own feelings. Is that a pretty decent definition, Daniel, you think?
I think it covers it pretty well. The important thing of this is, and this is my opinion, this is a very dangerous um, issue in domestic violence because it could be the beginning of uh, other types of abuse. And it can be very subtle. And sometimes what I have noticed is that some of these issues that we're going to discuss tonight or we're going to mention tonight, uh, some victims don't even think about them. They just think that that's the nature of that person and that's okay, and they don't put much attention. And as time goes by and situations escalate and problems become more difficult, uh, then they realize that it's become worse and worse, and they try to find out how did this start, when did it start, and at that point, of course, it's obvious that the only thing to do is ask your question and try to figure it out, but still, it won't do much of trying to find out unless you are trying to figure out what is your next step.
Right. Now, Lily, you and I were talking about this earlier. We've already covered physical abuse, but you've actually had victims that have said something to you about the emotional abuse. Do you remember what you told me earlier that the that victims of emotional abuse said when comparing it to physical abuse?
Yes, that most of the time they would wish that they would put their hands on them because then people would believe it. Because
Yeah,
when they say that their spouse or partner is doing this or that, people say, "Oh, that can't be. He's so sweet, or she's so sweet, or they're so sweet." Um, And I wanted to add to that definition that
okay.
it could be any person, it could be a business partner, a parent, a caretaker, or even an adult child that
Right,
can be emotionally or mentally abusing a person.
right. Now, also, you may hear this called psychological abuse as well. So
Yes,
it's emotional, mental, psychological abuse. It's
yes.
not just, and it really does play with someone's head, because people really start believing what the perpetrator's saying to them. And we're going to talk more about that as we go. They start to believe it about themselves. So, in some ways, I mean, I think physical abuse may leave physical marks and scars, But emotional abuse leaves something that, in a lot of ways, is much harder to get through, and that's the mental and the emotional scars that it leaves. And
Yes.
those are the ones that therapy is really needed. And I can't stress again enough how much therapy is needed in any aspect of domestic violence, but especially in the mental, physical, or the mental, emotional, psychological abuse.
Yeah, and
Um,
one of the things, Valerie,
yeah,
is that it's a game that the perpetrator plays, but it's a mental game, and as you've been mentioning, it can go very deep into the victim's persona, and very it could be very damaging,
yes,
because when you start believing the things that you hear that are not right, it's just that that person is playing a game with you. For them, it's a game. For you, it's not a game.
Hmm.
So you got to be very careful.
right. Now, I think what we're going to jump into next is actually the tactics that a perpetrator will use, which are meant to undermine the victim's self esteem. So I think we're going to get started with that. So, Daniel, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, some of the tactics, and we're going to go fairly quick with these because they are mostly self-explanatory. We will stop on some of them to just give advantage to some people who may want a little bit more explanation. But if you're listening to us tonight and you want more explanation about one of these tactics, please feel free to let us know.
Yeah,
Uh,
you can drop a comment over in the comment box. If you're watching
Yes.
this on replay, you can still comment to it and we'll get notified so that we'll be able to answer those questions. So, sorry,
exactly.
Daniel, go ahead.
No problem. Uh, some of the tactics are name calling, character assassination, yelling, patronizing. Lily, would you explain a little bit more about patronizing?
Well, it's when somebody belittles you by saying things like, I know you try, but this is just beyond the scope of your brain.
Yeah, it's like telling you that you're too dumb to understand, or you're too dumb to do certain things, and that is not fair because everybody has limitations on something. So you're not the only one who may have a limitation, and sometimes the limitation that they say you have is not real. It's
Mm,
just that they want to control you. Other tactics are public embarrassment, uh, dismissiveness, joking. This one is like, they say something, you get upset, and then they say, well, you can't even take a joke. Well, sometimes there are jokes that you rather not hear to, or you don't want anybody else to hear. So that's unfair. um, Insulting your appearance, belittling your accomplishments, putting down your interests, and pushing your buttons. Lily, talk a little bit about pushing your buttons.
Well, pushing your buttons is when someone finds something that really bothers you or annoys you and it makes you feel uncomfortable. They begin to mention it every opportunity that they have, and they sort of ignore you to say, when you're saying, leave me alone, stop. They just keep on going
mm.
until you get past.
Well, and I think if we kind of go back to insulting your appearance, I think that one a lot of times gets in there with pushing your buttons because a lot of times perpetrators will find something you're really dissatisfied with about your body or your appearance, and they always want to bring that back up. That is the area that they will target over and over and
Yes.
over.
Yes.
All right, then we're talking about control and shame too, Daniel.
Yeah, on control and shame, we have making threats, monitoring your whereabouts, spying on you digitally, and that could be trying to figure out in your computer where what places you look into, who you talk to. Just you lose complete control of what you can do in your computer, or spying you on the phone. um, Gaslighting. Um, Gaslighting. Lily, would you explain that?
Sure. Gaslighting is when someone is abusing you, but they deny the specific events. Um, they they say that the argument or the agreement never happened. This is a tactic that they use so that it'll keep in your mind, like you're questioning yourself: Did it really happen, or am I just making this thing up?
Yeah, I think gaslighting can best be explained too by the fact that they try to make you think you're crazy.
Exactly.
Literally over, oh, that didn't happen, or it didn't happen that way, or, I mean, they literally make you feel like you're the one that's crazy, or you're
Yeah.
the one that started it, or you're the one, it's your fault. Everything is
Hmm.
your fault. Even if it's their fault, it's your fault.
Exactly.
I've seen in counseling that one used a lot when the victim confronts a perpetrator in counseling, and she says that he's doing that, and he says, "But I don't remember that incident," or "That's not what I meant. You took it wrong. Uh, that never happened." So I see that very often, and it's interesting because uh, the victim many times cannot figure out what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and she feels like um, enclosed, and she can't do very much. But she's trying to think, am I going crazy, or is this true? Why is this happening, or did it happen that way? Did I misinterpret that? So
Right.
those are things that happen very often in counseling.
Right. And we talked about this earlier today too, because I'm doing another project that works with the internet scammers, and that is one of their tactics as well. So there's different forms of relationships that gaslighting can take place in. So, you know, all right.
Going on, we have making all the decisions, controlling your access to finances. This is one that a lot of perpetrators do very effectively.
Yeah. And we
And
talked about financial abuse last week. So this ties in as a form of that emotional abuse.
right. Uh, so we also have emotional blackmailing, lecturing you constantly, giving direct orders, like in the army. Sometimes in some couples, what I hear is, yes, the sergeant told me to do this, or the mayor told me to do that. And you can start seeing a pattern of behavior that you have to wonder uh, if it's abusive. And I say that you have to wonder because sometimes we as witnesses, we have to be very careful when we see one of these incidents isolated, or one of these incidents by themselves. Let's not jump the gun.
Right.
Let's make sure that there are other issues or other of these tactics that you could put together, and then you can say, okay, something is happening. And
Right.
that's when you go to that victim, and you just let them know that you're there for them if they ever need you. uh, they can contact you. That's very important, that support,
Right.
because counseling is important. But in addition to counseling, many times that support that you get from friends and from family is very significant and very
Yes.
helpful in your healing.
Right.
um, having frequent outbursts, feigning helplessness. Lily, what's that? Feigning helplessness.
It's when they say they don't know how to do something and they're hoping that simply you'll do it yourself instead of taking the time to explain it for them to do it.
The next one is um, unpredictability. And this one, we see it very often that the victims many times are so scared that they don't want to open their mouth. They don't want to say anything. They don't want to do anything because that person may get offended. And sometimes when they have a certain behavior, the perpetrator doesn't respond or react to it. Then other times they do respond and react to that. So it's unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. So that puts a person at edge. The next one is walking out and stonewalling you. Lily, stonewalling. What's that?
Well, it's when during an disagreement or a conflict, the person shuts down, refusing to respond to your attempts or communication.
I have to sit there and smile at that one, and I don't mean to smile, but I've actually talked to y'all about this before. You know, I have a husband, and when he shuts down, that makes me madder than ever, and that makes me want to even go harder at him. So, but you know, I think that is in a lot of marriages. That I think I really think that's in a lot of relationships that a lot of times, you know, my husband will tell you he just doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want confrontation, you know, but like I said, that makes me madder than, I mean,
And
makes me
that's
mad.
that's an example when I say that one of these behaviors alone doesn't mean much,
Right.
because one thing that is important when there are arguments or discussions in the relationship, whatever kind of relationship there is, sometimes the best thing to do is just to walk away. Just
Mhm.
shut down, walk away, leave the situation alone, and then at some other time come back and discuss and talk about it, because that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah.
Because if the other person is mad and you get mad and you start arguing, things tend to escalate, and if it's an abusive relationship, it's going to get worse. So sometimes when the perpetrator shuts down, it might be even helpful.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I have said things that I shouldn't have said in that moment. You know, if I would have followed his lead and walked away too and came back, I wouldn't have had to eat as much crow through the years as I've ate. So,
And that happens. We're human beings, and sometimes
Hmm.
we have those good days and some other not good days, and we react differently to things. But when we're talking about these behaviors as abusive, is because they are constantly, they are there all the time. Uh, it's it's a group of behaviors that really let you know that something is not right in the relationship.
Right.
okay. So now I think we're moving into the accusing, blaming, and denial. And that, what falls under that is jealousy, using guilt, unrealistic expectations, goading and blaming. And goading and blaming, I think, kind of goes along with the gaslighting. It's your fault. It's your fault. You're crazy, you know, or, you know, kind of egging someone on too. Denying the abuse, trivializing, making it minimal, you know, making your feelings or the victim's feelings minimal, you know, that they're overreacting to a situation that they view as pretty big, but of course the perpetrator is going to make it seem very small.
Hmm.
Um, Blaming you for their problems. That's a big one. You know, they lose their job. It's your fault. You
Yes.
know, they get a speeding ticket on the way home from work. It's your fault. And
I would
destroying. Oh, go ahead.
I would think that that one is one to pay close attention, because when you have nothing to do with their problems and they blame it on you, that tells you something.
Yes.
So it's very important that if somebody is blaming you for their problems that you've got nothing to do, you are not there, you didn't say anything, it's got absolutely anything to do with you, that's something you must watch very carefully because it's not a good sign.
Right.
Exactly.
And destroying and denying. Like, they throw their phone down and break it. Then they deny and say that, it happened accidentally. So, and then we've got the emotional neglect and isolation. And someone abusing you will generally try to get you to prioritize their needs and neglect your own. So that can come through dehumanizing you. And that's a big one, I think, in emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, they just try to speak to you in a way where you don't feel important or valuable or even worthy of a good word, and that's wrong.
Right.
Keeping you from socializing with others, invalidating you, and by that they might suggest or say straight out that your needs, boundaries, and desires don't matter to them. So trying to come between you and your family, that is another one that we do see in different types of relationships like we were talking about earlier. But that is another big one that goes in with the control aspect, is they're trying to isolate you from your friends and family. um, Using the silent treatment, that goes again with that stonewalling. And withholding affection, um, shutting down communication, again, that goes with stonewalling. Actively working to turn others against you, that happens a lot. Denying support, and that's primarily we're talking about emotional support. So they might, call you needy, um, and then, not even offer to, to address those needs.
Mm-hmm.
Interrupting, they don't let you get your words out. They don't let you say it. And then disputing your feelings. No matter what feeling or emotion you express, they insist you shouldn't feel that way. And again, I think that kind of goes with gaslighting a lot too. So, but anyway, those are some. There's more than what we've listed. I mean, I'm almost 100% sure that we did not cover every single thing in that list, but that's a lot of stuff on these lists. You know, um, So I think the first thing or the next thing we're going to talk about is how do you deal with emotional abuse? Um, and I think the number one thing that we need to stress, and this we've stressed it with everything, is that as you need to understand that abuse of any kind is never your fault.
Right.
Ever. It is never the victim's fault. The perpetrator is making the decisions to take the actions that they're taking. And nothing that you can do deserves any kind of violence in turn. So I'll start with that. Daniel, how do you deal with emotional abuse?
Okay, one way to start with it is don't try to fix the perpetrator. That's a mistake that a lot of people go through. They say, "Oh, he's okay or she's okay," but as the relationship gets deeper, then we'll work it out. And I know how to fix him. I know how to fix her. These are issues on the perpetrator that are really deep, and the purpose is to control the other person. So trying to fix them is mission impossible. They are not fixable. As much as you can try, as much as you want, it might work for a day or two, but afterwards it's going to go back to the same cycle because that's the routine of their life. That's how they operate. That's how they made it up to that point. And in the relationship, once they figure out that they can control that person, it just gets worse. So trying to fix it on your own doesn't work. The best way to do is go find help.
Yeah. Again, let's stress that in all forms of abuse, the number one goal by the perpetrator is to control. That
Right.
is what is, abuse is about. So, you want me to do the next one, Daniel?
Next
Or
one is avoid self blame. This is
again,
very
don't
typical
blame
too.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, the victim is always questioning, is it my fault? What did I say? What did I do? Uh, Avoid that, because the more you do that, the more the perpetrator realizes that they are having control over you. But if you start uh, doing things that avoid that you show that you're avoiding that self-blame, they're going to either change their behavior or they're going to have to do something. And sometimes what they do, if it's early in the relationship, sometimes what they do is they threaten, oh, I'm going to leave the relationship.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So don't don't buy don't buy that story that it's all your fault, because in relationships, uh, sometimes the fault is on one side, sometimes the fault is on another. And as human beings, as we grow in a relationship, things will change, things will happen, and that's how we grow in that relationship on a healthy way, by understanding each other.
Yeah. Let me take a minute to say hello to Rachel. I think Rachel has been here every single episode so far. Thank you, Rachel, for coming. And Daniel, she said that you are so true in what you said. So,
Well, thank you, Rachel.
all right. The next one, Daniel.
Prioritize your needs. It's important that you make sure how you feel, and that those feelings that you have are important. Um, Sometimes when a perpetrator um, tells you that there's no reason for you to feel like that, uh, it may not be necessarily true. It's okay to have feelings, to have your emotions, and to build on them, and to change them if you need to. This is life. That's what
Yeah.
life is all about making sure that you are doing what you understand is right, what you can see that it's affecting others in a positive way. And if you
Yeah.
see it's affecting others in a negative way, then you change your behaviors. So it's important that you prioritize your needs. What's important? You are important. Okay, and your health is important, your self, uh, your growth is important, your emotional and spiritual health is important. So that's those are things to keep in mind. The
Mm-hmm.
next one is set personal boundaries. There are things that you can say no. Sometimes the victim feels that if she doesn't if she doesn't do what the perpetrator says, they're going to lose that relationship. If it's something that is against your values, don't do it. Don't do it. It's important that you start setting parameters and you set your boundaries. What things will you allow in a relationship? What things will you not allow in a relationship? Uh,
Right.
when you see couples that they get along, they are able to have difficult times, but at the same time, they can talk it through, okay, and they can build up that relationship, and they have respect for each other. The opposite, trying to control you, trying to tell you other things, and you giving up on them, that is not healthy. Um, the next one is build a support network. One of the things that perpetrators tend to do is they try to isolate you from friends and family.
Right.
And that's a very effective tactic for them, because they isolate you, and when you're isolated, you don't have anybody to talk to, you don't have anybody to share with. So it's important for you to build a support group. Keep your friends, like everything. Uh, there are friends that are going to come and go. If you move to a new place, you're going to make new friends. Make a safe network that you can find people that you can talk to, that you can trust, and that you can have a good time with. Perpetrators don't like to be in groups and having fun because they get jealous, or they they figure out things that are not happening. So they try to isolate you. They don't want you to be happy, to have a good time. If the only good time you can have is with that person, there's something that you need to look into, because it's not going to benefit your relationship.
Okay, let me address this, Daniel, real quick. Rachel said, so you're saying that it's okay to take care of you? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And everyone, regardless of your relationship status, everybody needs to learn to take care of themselves. Self care is important, but especially when you're in a relationship like this. So she also has another comment, Daniel, that's addressed directly to you. Can you see that on the screen? It says, Daniel, if you want to leave a relationship, is it a form of control if they won't let you?
Okay. Um, and this is the next one that we're going to discuss about. Sometimes the best thing to do is to just leave the relationship. Um, if you're going to leave a relationship, and let's say that you're living with that person, and that person has been abusive, and you're tired, sick and tired of doing it, you need to make a plan to leave that place. If you're leaving the home, the apartment, or wherever it is that you're living with them, you need to make a safe plan. That means that you need to contact other people. Sometimes the best thing to do is that if you're going to use the phone, when you call your friends for help, you just give them a code. If I call you and I ask you for the weather, for instance, if I call you and I ask you for the weather, uh, and I'm telling you that tomorrow it's not going to be good, that means that I'm in trouble. Come and pick me up, or in the plan, whatever you have set up, that person's going to be ready to help you. There are many ways. We can talk about this one in particular in another program,
Mm-hmm.
but it is important that don't just let your abuser know that you're going to leave, because that is when things get really, really bad. If that person is trying to control you, just the thought that they're gonna lose you, and they're gonna lose that control, is very dangerous. So when we're talking about perpetrators feeling afraid that you're gonna leave them, uh, you got to be very careful. So make a plan. Talk to other people. The plan needs to include where you're gonna put your personal documents, where you're gonna have a phone, where you're gonna put your keys. How are you gonna do that? So it takes a few steps that they may be simple, but at the same time, you got to be very careful on how you do them, because you could put yourself at risk. Once you leave that relationship, that's when the tough part comes in. That's when the biggest danger is right there. So you gotta make sure that if you leave that relationship, you leave no track where you could be, where he or she can find you, because that's when it gets really ugly.
Right.
And
Now,
then
Ray,
what I wanted to add to that too is when you're leaving a relationship, it's important that your yes be yes and your no be no. You let them know you are going to be leaving, and I know you're right about everything else about the safety plan, but you need to change your social media accounts. Don't get on them. Block
phone
your
numbers.
number or change your phone number. There's so many ways that you can go and they won't find you. It's how we do on TikTok, on Facebook, on LinkedIn or whatever, Instagram. It's the things that we post out there for the world to see. They will search for us. But if you stay low and you just change your habits, you'll be okay.
The
Um,
only thing I want to stress is really never let them know that you're leaving. That's very dangerous. If you're going to leave, just make that plan and leave. And like Lily said, make sure that you take care of these things because they are the ones that are going to keep you safe.
yeah, I'm gonna Rachel, I see what you said about you did, but now you're scared because you feel like you're getting followed, but he doesn't know where you are. You know, we always encourage people if they're in any kind of immediate danger, you call 911. Lily, do you know Rachel?
Yes.
So can she
Can
message
she what?
you privately, message you through Facebook, or email you through a safe harbor home if she's got some concerns that maybe you all can guide her through?
Definitely.
Okay. All right. And Lily is going to put up her number, um, which we will go through all this, but it's scrolling along the bottom of the screen, and also the email address. So
Rachel,
that way,
Rachel,
Rachel.
yeah, Rachel, you can also contact us if you want some crisis counseling. We can talk with you and we can set an appointment. So, uh, because this is important. Once you leave, yes, you will be looking over your shoulder all the time. The most important thing is that you don't leave any clues on where you could be, where they can find you. Sometimes you have to change your job, you have to change your address, you have to change so many things, and it's going to take a while. Which leads us to our next issue, which is give yourself time to heal. It takes a while. Once you become a victim, uh, some of these issues are going to come back at you. Sometimes you're going to feel like uh, I, I, I can't make it on my own. I should go back. Uh, I wonder if I did it right. I wonder what's going on. Give yourself time to heal. That's why counseling is important, and having a good support with family and friends. But make sure that when it comes to support with family and friends, you're getting support from people who are going to help you to stay safe. Don't go with people that can tell them where you are, what your phone number is, where to locate you in the internet, or anything like that. Those are important things to keep in mind because it's going to take time to heal, and it's not easy to do it on your own. So look for that counseling and look for that support.
So that kind of wrapped up that category there. There are challenges anytime someone gets ready to leave a domestic violence situation. There's always challenges, but if you're married, if you have children, I mean, there's certain things that you need to, be able to address. Sometimes there's legal issues, things like that. There are resources out there to be able to help. And we always have the National Domestic Violence Hotline number that is, put up on the bottom of the screen, as well as in the description of the videos that we put up. So, also mental health, those having, counselors or case managers that can help you develop a safety plan or an exit plan, and to be able to do that as safely as possible, because that is the number one priority in this situation, is safety. Getting you out of this bad situation safely. uh, Lily, Rachel says she will give you a call tomorrow.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
um, there are a couple of resources. I know, Daniel, you listed here domesticshelters.org and Love is Respect.
Love is Respect is a good one for teenagers.
Okay. So, um, I don't know. Did we really cover the warning signs? Did we? What might somebody looking in see? Do you think, Daniel? Somebody on the outside that may have someone that they think may be in a situation. Do you know what they might see? I mean, I'm assuming it would be some of the same things except for the physical markings that you might see in somebody that's being physically abused. You're probably going to see an emotional abuse as well.
Well, this brings to mind. I met a couple years ago, and he was an ex-soldier. He retired from the army, and whenever she spoke, it was like he made faces,
Mhm.
or he would say something to minimize what she was saying. That really gave me a hint that something was not right in that relationship, though they appeared to be okay. Uh, it
Right.
seemed to me like she had done that for so many years, or he had been doing that behavior for so many years, that to her it was something that it was okay, it was common. Uh,
Mhm.
but for the people who are looking at this, they will notice and they will question it. My biggest concern is when it comes to emotional abuse, is that we can take one or a couple of these behaviors at a certain time on a certain couple, and they may be happening, but they're isolated incidents. They
Mhm.
respect each other. It was a bad day for them. So
Right.
you want to be careful when
Mhm.
you witness this, because you might, as we say, jump the gun
Yeah.
and create a difficult situation for the couple.
Right.
It may create a difficult situation for you. So just be very careful when you observe these things, and how you judge them, because the way that you judge them might make a difference in somebody's life, which may not be the best.
Right.
So just
I
be
think
very.
that we have to remember, I mean, we don't assume, but if you believe somebody is in a domestic violence situation, the best thing that you can do is be supportive and be there for them.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, you may be right in what you're seeing. They may not be ready to face that yet. They may not be ready for that. So the best thing that you can do is just be supportive and let them know that you're there for them. Um,
Exactly.
you know, all right. Y'all got anything else on this? I mean, we've covered a lot of information tonight.
Yeah, we really did.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this is very helpful for those who are viewing us today. And just keep in mind that you can call us at 423 or you can contact us at info@asafeharborhome.org, and we'll be more than happy to spend some time on the phone with you, or even face to face. However we can help you. Uh, Remember, being a victim is it's not necessary for you. You are not at fault of what's happening. It's never your fault, so you don't have to live with it.
I think I also want to stress that if you would like to see the work that Lily and Daniel have done and continue to do, please check out their website at safeharborhome.org. There you can see the services that they provide. You'll see the counties that they particularly cover running across the bottom of your screen right now. Just remember that if you do need help and you don't live in these 8 counties, if you need some guidance on where to look, you can still reach out to them, and they will try to guide you as much as possible with resources, linkage to resources. If you would like to donate time or even financially to help go back into the programs that Lily and Daniel through a Safe Harbor Home do, then you can find links to that on their website. Also, you're watching us on Facebook and YouTube. Both of those are under a safeharborhome.org. And I think, Lily, you also have, or a Safe Harbor Home, not .org on those. But you also have Instagram, correct? And we do have
Yes.
TikTok. And all of those
Yes.
are under a Safe Harbor Home Inc., correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I think next week, why don't we do this? I think we've officially kind of covered the major forms of abuse. Why don't we talk about the barriers to leaving? There's quite a few of those, and what some people might be experiencing. What do y'all think about that?
That
Perfect.
sounds good.
Okay.
Perfect.
So, also, if you are a survivor of domestic violence and you would like to come on and share your story, whether it be on camera or off camera, or just like to share your story with us that we can share for you, please reach out to either the phone number or the email address. We would love to hear your story and be able to share your story if you don't feel comfortable in doing it. And I think that has about got us for tonight. What do y'all think?
Yep.
I think we're done for tonight.
All right. Well, everybody have a good night. We will be back here live again next Thursday night at 7 o'clock. And like I said, we will be covering some of the barriers to leaving an abusive relationship.
Thanks
All
for
right.
being with us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Y'all have a great night. Bye.
Bye.